Okay, so by the time this iteration is done, okay, now let me just shift this here so it becomes a bit compact. I hope you see it though. Yeah. Okay, so by the time this is done, we'll have all the number of even numbers and all the number of odd numbers. Okay, and then all we have to do is just go ahead and print out the content of number of odd numbers and the number of even numbers. Let me see. Okay, over this is supposed to be number of odd numbers with s here. It's supposed to be s here. Okay, so all we have to do is just print out number of odd numbers and number of even numbers, right? So we can go ahead and print it out in main. I'm sorry. We can go ahead and print it out in main. But since chapter 5 is all about functions, let's go ahead and create a function that's going to print out the details. Okay, so I'm going to define a function, and I'm going to call it print results or something, print results. And print results is going to basically take in some arguments. So I'm going to go ahead and define some parameters for this print results function. Now, all it's going to do is it's going to print out something, and it needs that something to print. Okay, so in this case, what I wanted to print is the number of odd numbers, right? So it's going to accept in. Now it's going to go. So it's going to accept. I'm going to define a placeholder, a parameter that's going to hold, okay, the number of odd numbers. So I'm going to call this the same as the variable itself. It doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be. It's just a name I'm giving to the placeholder or the slot that's going to represent the number of odd numbers. I'm going to do the same thing for a number of even numbers. Actually, let's start with even first. All right, so I'm going to put this here. All right, so oops, I didn't copy it. Even. Okay. So first of all, it's going to accept in even the number of even numbers, and it's going to accept the number of odd numbers. Now these names, that they don't have to be the same as these variables. They don't have to be the same as these variables. This is just a name I'm giving to the placeholders. So okay, they can be something different. And then when I call this function and I pass in these variables, they're going to replace these values, right? And then they're going to be used however I use it in the print result function. Okay, so now in this program we can go ahead and print out all the random numbers so we can check, right? But we don't have to. It's going to, let's just, the program said we should just display how many were odd and how many were even. But if you wanted, you can also print out every random number. You can do that. Okay, so print result is just going to print something and say that, let's say something. So I'm just going to print out the message and say out of 100, right? So there were, and then I'm going to pass in another argument. I don't need a space. And I'm basically passing out arguments into the print function so they are displayed, right? So out of 100 numbers, let's just stick with this. Out of 100, there were, and the next argument is going to be number of even numbers. Okay, so there were number of even numbers, and then I'm going to have another string and say numbers and another argument, number of odd numbers, like that. Now I don't know if you can see this line over here. This line is like a guideline to help me write code 80 characters on a line. Okay, it's just guiding me so I can code 80 characters on a line. It's a Python standard to do that, right? So I'm trying to stick with that standard. And so I have this line here to guide me. So I know that I've exceeded this 80 characters on a line, right? So I want to go ahead and break this into two so I don't exceed this. All right, so I'm going to break it somewhere around here. Now before you break any line in Python, you have to type in a backslash and then hit enter. Okay, so I type in a backslash, I'm going to hit enter. And now I haven't exceeded this line, and I've broken the same line into, so this is basically one line just broken into two, okay, with a backslash. So out of 100, there were, let's say if there were 4 even numbers, I would say there were 4, I meant to say even, right? So 4 even numbers, and I've exceeded this again, so let's not break it here. I'm just bringing it back so that you don't get confused. All right, so this is the original line. Let's break it somewhere around here. Type in the backslash, okay, and then enter. Okay, Out of 100, there were number of even numbers, and number of odd numbers. So there are 4 odd numbers, I would say 4 odd numbers. So that's all it's going to do. And I'll show you how it's split. Well, I'll show you in a second. When you pass in arguments into the print function this way, they are displayed with a space separating them. Okay, so this is going to be displayed this way. So first of all, these are all arguments, and they're separated with a comma. So this is one argument. It's another argument separated with a comma. This is one whole argument separated with a comma. The space doesn't have to be there, by the way. And the space doesn't have to be here too. Because when you pass an argument into the print function this way, they are displayed with a space separating them. So it's going to go ahead and display out of 100, there were, so that's one argument. And it's going to display space, number of even numbers, space, even numbers, and space, number of odd numbers, space, odd numbers. So it's going to separate them with a space by default. So you don't need a space at the beginning of this or at the end of that. You don't, unless you really have to. But it's going to display them nicely with spaces separating all the argument. Okay, so now let's go ahead and continue, all right? So now we have all our functions defined, right? But if we run this program, nothing is really going to happen because we haven't called any function yet. I mean, we have called them in main. We have called the functions in main, but the main function is the function that's running our program. That's the function that's calling all other functions. So in order to really see anything, again, now this function, I'm going to go ahead and place it above the main function, right? It doesn't matter, right? But I'm going to go ahead and place it above the main function. Let's see. I'm always used to doing that anyway, so I haven't tried to actually be low in Python. I don't think so. But in other program languages, if you try it below, it still works. Because the function, it's like once the program starts, it just keeps in memory the functions first. So the functions will be available even before it runs the code. But I want to keep it organized, right? Before I call it. Okay, although it may work. So let's keep all our functions organized on the top and then our main program here. And then once we're done figuring out the even numbers and odd numbers, let's go ahead and call the print. But it's not going to be in the loop though, so I'm going to go outside the loop here. And let's go ahead and print the results. So I'm going to go ahead and call the print results function, which is going to take in it takes in number of even numbers and it takes a number of odd numbers, right? So I will have them stored here by the end of this whole iteration. I will have them stored in these variables. So I'm going to copy them. First of all, it's going to be number of even numbers. Second, it's going to be number of odd numbers. Now it doesn't have to be. So again, these numbers don't have to be called the same as these, right? But I just use them, because they were there. And again, so these are the arguments I'm passing to the function, and these are actually the parameters I'm setting. Okay, these can be different names, but these are the actual argument variables with values that I'm passing into the print result. I hope it's clear. Okay, if it's not clear, please comment below and I'll explain. Now I've jumbled everything together. I'm supposed to space it out, so let me just go ahead and do that, just so it's clear to everyone. So this is what we're doing. This is the for loop. This is the variable section, and this is the print results. I like to, for me, when I'm done with my program, sometimes I like to squeeze it up a little bit. But just for clarity, I'm going to space it out. I'm supposed to actually. A line here doesn't hurt. I should. All right. So print results will be called. But again, everything has been defined in the main function. The main function itself is a function that, it's just a function. It's just been defined. If we run the program, nothing's going to happen. We have to go ahead and call the main function. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to go ahead and call the main function here. Okay. Now it's going to go ahead and do everything in the main function. It's going to call the rest of the other functions and then work with them. Okay. So let's run this and see what happens. I'm going to save this where I save all the Python programs. Desktop. I'm going to go ahead and create a folder called odd even counter. And then I'll save the files are the same thing. Odd even counter.py. Okay. So now let's see what happens if we have any errors. Okay, so let me just bring this up a little bit. All right, so out of 100, there were 48 even numbers and 52 odd numbers. We can tell. We can tell that this first of all adds up to 100, but we don't really see the numbers. Although we can print the numbers just to verify because it's a long list. I don't want to. What we can do it once, but let's just run it again to see it changes. Out of 100, there were 51 even numbers and 49. Runs again, 43 even numbers, 57, 38 even numbers and 62. You can see it's changing. 51, 49, 55, 45, 54, 46, 46, 54, 47, 53. Now we can print the numbers just to verify, but I don't think we're going to count it though. So it's a lot of numbers. We can actually try and change how many numbers. We can change it in the loop just for testing purposes. Let's just go ahead and print the numbers so we can see it. And all we have to do is since we know this is going to be the number, okay, since we know once we call the generate random number, it generates a random number, and we know this is the number. So before it does anything, let's go ahead and print it. Let's just go ahead and print it so we can see the number, random number. So print random number so we can see it. And since it's in a loop, it's going to print all the numbers. Okay, so let me just bring this up here because it's going to be a long list and run this. Okay, so now we are seeing the numbers here. It's 100 numbers. So yeah, and we can see. We can also print it. So let's just print it horizontally. So it's better that way. So we know that by default the print function ends with a new line character, meaning after it's done printing one number like this, it moves the position from where it's at over here to the next line here, and then it prints another one, and then it moves the position from where it's at to the next line, and then print it. That's how the print function works by default. After it's done printing one line, like 3, for example, it always ends with a new line character, meaning it moves the position from where it's at here to the next line here, and then it prints the next one. But that's by default the ending value for a print function. By default, end with a new line character. That's how it's defined. You can go ahead and change it and override it. It's basically an argument. You specify an argument and you say end. You're basically saying you're changing the end value for the print function. You're saying I'm changing the end value from a new line character to a comma and a space. So when you print a number, don't end it with a new line. Don't move the position from where it's at to the next line. Once you print a number, I'm saying once you print a number, put a comma and put a space and print the next number. Put a comma, put a space and print the next number. Okay, so comma and space. All right, so now let's run this. We're going to see the numbers horizontally. You can see that here. Okay, so that's actually better. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so yeah, the very last number we should actually go ahead and then bring it down, right? We can do that. Let's fix it. I don't want to confuse it too much. This is just to test it out. So after we've printed the number, we can because it doesn't now end with a new line character, we have to go ahead and do that ourselves. And I'll get into that. Okay, so let me go ahead and explain this because I'm going to explain it anyway. So we know that the print function ends with a new line character by default, right? So if I call the print function, first of all, if I call the print function and I type in something, we know that it's going to print out this, but after printing it out, it's going to move the position from where it's at to the next line. So whatever comes after this print function is going to be displayed on that next line, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just call the print function with passing in nothing. So that means it's still going to print out something. In this case, that's something it's printing as nothing. It's printing out nothing because I'm passing nothing into the parentheses. It's printing out nothing, but by default, the print function always ends with a new line character. So after printing out nothing, so it's basically going to print out an empty line, and then it's going to move the position from where it's at to the next line. So after this list is done, here, we can see after the list is done all the way here, it gets here. This is the last value here, right? And then it jumps to this print function, meaning it's going to print out an empty line on this line. Okay, and then it's going to, because the print function always ends with a new line character, it's going to move the position from where it's at to the next line, and then whatever comes after it, which is this whole thing, is going to be displayed, which is this whole this whole string here is going to be displayed on that next line. I hope it's clear, but I'll mention this again in a moment. But let's just try this now. We can see that it's working now. So after displaying all the numbers, we can see our message here. These are did I put that in a loop? I did put that in a loop. It's not supposed to be in a loop, right? This is not supposed to be in a loop. So that's why. so let me undo this. So that's why each time it prints a number, it creates a new line character, a new line before. I've basically changed it again. I'm supposed to put it outside a loop. So go ahead and print out all the numbers separated with a comma. When you're done with the last one, which is outside the loop, go ahead and create a new line before you print the result, before you print that message at the end. So now this is going to work. So when I run this now, I still have all my numbers horizontally, but I have my message right after it. So out of 100, there were 52 even numbers and 48. So these are the numbers. We can see them and we can count to see if it's correct, or we can change the value from not to 100 numbers, but we can say 10 numbers, right? Or even 5 numbers. Let's just do 5 numbers. So 5 numbers, we know that if we type in 5, it's going to basically iterate 4 times. It's going to iterate from 1 to 4. We're going to create a range from 1 to 4. So we always have to type in 1 more than the ending limit, which so changes to 6, it's going to go ahead and create a range from 1 to 5, meaning this loop is going to iterate 5 times from 1 to 5. And current iteration is going to keep track of those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 5. So let's generate 5 numbers, right? And then it says out of 100. Now this is just a message. That's why it still says out of 100. Okay, that's just a message over here. So that's why it's still displaying. But you can actually create a variable and keep the total number of iterations in a loop. Sorry, in a variable, and then you can actually use it in your print statement. So whatever number you have here is going to be reflected here. But this is just a string, so just ignore it. All right. So now we can count. Okay. Out of 5 numbers, there were 1 even numbers, right? It's supposed to say 1 even number. You can modify the program, to make sure it's very accurate. But we know there's 1 even number and 4 odd numbers. And that even number is 8. Everything else is odd. So we can see 5, 7, 9, and 5 are odd. We can try this again. 4 even numbers this time, 1 odd number. 1 odd number is 5. Everything else is even. You can see it's correct. Try one last time. 2 even numbers, which is 8 and 2. And then 3 odd numbers, which is 1, 7, and then 5. So we can see this is working. Now let's change this back to 100. So 101, okay. 101 is going to specify a range from 1 to 100. 100 is going to specify a range from 1 to 99. So always type in 1 more than the ending limit. Now we have 100 numbers. Okay, now I don't want to go ahead and print everything horizontally. You can actually. So let's leave it this way. You can if you want. You can change the separator to a space so you don't have the comma at the end of this. Just a space. And at the end, not a separator, an ending to a space. So that, you see that. So now it's just a space. Okay. So basically you can modify this however you want it, whether you want it horizontally or vertically. All right, so now all I want is just let's see. All I want is now a new line after, which we just did actually. All I want is a new line after, so basically I want a space between the numbers and then, one line break between the numbers and then the output and then this message. I want like a line separating them. All right, so we can also fix that. We can also do that. So over here, with the function that's displaying all the numbers horizontally, we've changed the ending value to a space. So once it's done with the last value over here, so the position is still here because it doesn't end with a line character. It ends with a space. So basically, there's a space here we can't see. I don't know if I highlight this, you can see that there's a space. I'm highlighting from here, but as soon as I get there, see, there's a space here that we can't see. So it's basically ending now with a space. And then what's really making it move to the next line is because of this print function. It's printing out nothing after the space, but it's ending with a new line character, meaning it's moving from that position, to the next line. And then anything that comes after this print function is displayed on that next line. And that's why we saw that print results, the results are displayed on that next line. Now you can call it twice, just so you have another line. Okay. separating them. You can call it twice. Sorry. So we know that this print function is printing out nothing on this line, but by default it ends with a new line character, meaning it moves from that current position to the next line here, and we know that's what's happening. So if you can call this twice like this, if you want, and that's basically going to solve it. We can see it has another. Call this again. We can see it has another space. You can do that. You can do that. That's certainly one option. So what's really happening is it's printing out nothing on that line, and then by default the print function always ends with a new line character, meaning it moves from that position to the next line once it's done printing whatever you told it to print. In this case, we told it to print nothing, and then anything that comes after that print function is displayed on that next line. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. I'm going to show you another way. So now we are back to square one. Oh, I was supposed to change this back to oops. I changed the number in the random numbers, right? I said now this means creates a random number, any random number from 1 to 101. Now in this round end 101 is included, but in the loop over here it's this 6 is not included, so it's 1 to 5. Change this back to 101. Change this back to 10. 10 is good. So give me a random number in a range of 1 to 10. I iterate from 1 to 100. So, okay. All right, so now we have 100 numbers and everything's working fine. So another way to do it is, now we know that this print function is what is displaying the output. We know when we call it over here, this print results function is basically what's displaying the output. And it starts with this message. Once we call this is basically what's happening. It starts with this message. Now, before it starts, we can say that create a new line before you start. We can use the escape sequence \n. You can think of this n as an escape character, right? A special escape character. So the \n, when the interpreter sees the \n, this is like a special command, right? Once you start the \, you're starting an escape sequence, meaning there are some special characters that follow the \, that make it do something. So once you type in the \, it's expecting one of those special escape characters. N happens to be one of those escape characters, and what it does is it moves the position from where it's at, okay, to the next line, and anything that comes after this \n is displayed on that next line. So \n together, okay, they have to be together. Together creates that new line character, okay. So basically before it displays this out of 100, this is the first thing before that. So before it displays that before it displays that out of 100, it's going to see this \n, and it's going to move the position from where it's at, which is here, to the next line here. And then after that \n, after that new line, character, or after that new line escape sequence, anything that comes after that \n, basically, after that, the string out of 100, everything else here is going to be displayed on that next line going. So this is another way to do it. All right, so I hope that was also clear. I know I've talked a lot in this this video, but I love talking. I love explaining stuff, right? I just want to make sure you all get it. If you already know this, please feel free to skip through it. But if it's helping you, great. That's what I want. All right, so I hope there's one way to do it. So we can see we have a new line here, okay? And then anything that comes after that new line character, that \n, is displayed on that next line. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Basically, we're done. You can see the program is running well. All right. So if you have any questions, please comment down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next program. All right, bye-bye.